Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bengal Tiger podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Shea Dixon. Shea, how you feeling Sunday morning? Uh, LSU gets a big 21-17 win over Auburn in a game that had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of twists and turns, wouldn't you say?
That's every Auburn LSU series. I said it all week on the pod. I said it all week on the site. Expect the unexpected. LSU 8-point favorites goes down 17-0 immediately, and then somehow find a way to climb back. We can unpack it all, but 5 passing yards in a second half, and they won the game and had to come back to do it. Unbelievable.
There's countless stats we could start with. I think just from an overall perspective, you mentioned it, the grit to win this game. It's very cliche. It's very much like, oh, this team wants it. They play hard. I mean, the four quarters thing that they showed against Florida State, Mississippi State, and now Auburn. They're three actual big FBS games. You have to credit conditioning, you have to credit discipline, and you have to credit, Brian Kelly for a lot of this because an undisciplined team does not win this game. A team that, and I know they still had penalties, but penalties are only so much of discipline, and sometimes they're lucky, unlucky with pass interference and stuff like that. But still, to be disciplined, to have the conditioning, I think it speaks to the buy-in that this team has at this point, and that's just from a general perspective to pull out this win on the road.
Yeah, I thought that after the game, LSU football tweeted out kind of a snippet of Kelly's post-game locker room speech, and he said that he said, "Look, guys, this did you play well? No, well, he said, look, we got to coach better, we have to execute better, we have to play better, all those things. But were you lucky to win? No. Was it gifted to you? No. All of those things, Kelly said, like how they ended up winning this game and fighting back and being victorious, we're buying into the little things they want them to do every week and the little things that Kelly wants to build towards the foundation of the team, whether that was buying into conditioning, whether that was playing all four quarters, whether that was just rising to the occasion at the end. Um, a team that a team that isn't sticking together and doesn't have some fight loses that game easily, especially when you have nothing going in the passing game all night. So if there if there's some kudos to hand out, one, this team fights every week. Two, it does seem like they're buying into foundationally what Kelly wants out of this team. I'm not saying how they execute on offense. I'm not saying slow starts, any of that. I'm just saying buying into the foundation of what Kelly wants seems to be happening. And I think it showed last night.
Yeah, you can't. To me, it was a really poor performance, I think, for most of the game. Like, you get outgained by Auburn 438 to 270. At the end of the day, like, that number speaks
And
for
the time
itself.
of possession was split down the middle. So they just put up a lot more yards.
Yeah, they you let Robbie Ashford throw for what was it, 337 yards, 19 of 38. You start the game off with several coverage busts. For seemingly for the majority of the game, every time Ashford left the pocket and looked like he could scramble, the defense kind of collapsed in a lot of ways, and that was really disappointing to see the defense not be able to contain Robbie Ashford. There were only a handful of throws where Ashford made that I was like, okay, that's actually not too much the defense could do about that, but to let him really get going, I thought was disappointing. I know I didn't really want to start with negative here, but that's how the game started. They went out 17-0, and I thought Auburn should have gone for it on fourth down to try to get up 21-0. I think it was 4th and 4, but they kicked the field goal to make it 17-0. And I say that because I just knew Auburn's defense would get better as the game went on. LSU's defense would get better as the game went on. The offense would figure something out, which it did kind of, but it still wasn't pretty. So, yeah, if we're starting, for me, it starts with the LSU defense. awful early, and I truly believe that. I mean, I really think they were not good, and they settle in at least to get some stops late. But even when they got stops, Auburn was moving the ball. They got the ball. What was it, at the 38 twice and ended up going for it on 4th and 10, 4th and 11. Then you have the
I
Quinn
don't
Moore
know what
interception.
that 4th and 10 call was by Auburn.
I said on both occasions I would have punted, which I know might be unpopular because you're punting from the 38,
And
but
they
like,
wasted a timeout to decide to still go for it on the fourth. Like I had no clue what they were doing.
yeah, I said I would have punted it just because LSU's offense, like I would have made all LSU's offense, even if it's only, a 23-yard punt or a 25-yard punt, make them go those extra yards to me. But yeah, it's not like LSU or Auburn stopped moving the ball; they were still moving it. They just didn't finish those drives at the end. So yeah, LSU's defense is probably it was a little disappointing, but they came together at the end when it mattered, as they did in the Florida State game, as they did in the Mississippi State game as well.
I think Matt House has got some very good adjustments in his game plan. Like second halves of football games, the clamps are being put down. And we saw, look, State went up 13-0 in the second quarter. They scored 3 points the rest of the game. Auburn went up 17-0, 10 minutes left in the second quarter. They never score again the rest of the game. So I know we'll probably touch on some coaching or coordinators in this pod or the next, but I think we got to continue to give Matt House credit and the defense. I just feel like they know that they aren't giving it back to an offense that's explosive. Like they know they are in for a long night. The burden's on them to get the job done. And in the two SEC games, they have fallen down in double digits early with the offense having no points on the board, and to win both those games by allowing a combined 3 points the rest of the way. This
And
defense is
not
going to win him some games.
yeah, and not just hold up your end. This defense is asked, at least I think against Auburn, they needed to force turnovers as well. As we saw with the BJ Ojolari strip sack and Jay Ward returns it for a fumble, the Greg Brooks interception. I mean, this is a defense that needs to force turnovers because I just at this moment I don't trust the offense to really be consistent in scoring points and going the length of the field every single time. Like they'll do it on occasion, but at times you need the defense to score points in the SEC, especially with the stretch of games coming up. This defense has to force turnovers, and they did a great job. And all credits. I mean, PJ Ojolari is he's a monster. Harold Perkins is a monster. The secondary is way better than what we thought it was going to be coming into the year. I mean, the talent on this defense is really, really good, but you have to give Matt House credit, like you said.
There were some busts in the secondary early where it was communication issues that led to seemingly communication issues led to 2 touchdowns. Guys were wide open. So secondary, I'm still like I want to see what they can do against Hendon Hooker when Tennessee comes to town. You know,
The whole defense just looked. And I said this like while we were doing the live stream. Shout out to everybody who joined over there. But the defense just looked scared every time Ashford left the pocket. It looked like they were like, "Oh, okay, this is what we've been working on. We've been working on stopping him from running." And then I think there was a 3rd and 25 where Mekhi Gardner starts sprinting at Ashford, and the guy just runs behind him, and they give up the 3rd and 25 to the from wide receiver. And I'm like it's 3rd and 25. Why are you sprinting up that far on the field to give up, a throw behind you? If anything, you should be playing more safe at that point. But that was probably my biggest issue was they didn't look like they knew how to handle Ashford. And I'm like, you're going against Jane Daniels in practice. I feel like you should have a pretty good idea of that.
yeah. And Kelly said that this week. He said we have a good idea of how to handle Ashford because we faced a similar quarterback in
Yeah.
practice. So that was kind of disheartening, I guess, in a way to see. All right, where are we taking this? How are we breaking this one down, reacting to it? Are we going big picture? Because I'll say this, and I think this should set the tone for how we're talking on this podcast. LSU, like, they're in such a rebuild right now, taking more transfers than anyone in college football, an entirely new coaching staff that Kelly is the first thing out of his mouth is we're rebuilding. We're rebuilding. I mean, Matty B to start Auburn week, he did his opening statement, and before even talking about Auburn, which is usually what the opening statement is, he like laid out some, hey, just so y'all know, everyone else we play is going to be better than what we've already faced,
Yeah.
type thing. Like, yeah, we're 3-1 now, 4-1, but Kelly said it's going to get more difficult. And I feel like for me, because of how patchwork this team is, and in year one of Kelly and trying to build the foundation there, every week is going to be a different storyline, an outcome, and something goes wrong. But I don't think that for LSU fans, I follow up every game. And I wrote this in my final thoughts. Like every game doesn't need to bring with it some question about the future of the program. Or like, are we headed in the right direction type thing? Like this isn't like A&M and Jimbo are having those conversations right now. This is year one of Brian Kelly. You basically rented a quarterback in Jaden Daniels out of the portal who had already started 30 something games, and you're going to ride him this year. You're trying to bridge the gap to younger guys on the roster, whether it's Nussmeyer or Walker Howard. You knew that, and with all the different pieces starting all over from the portal, from the bench last year, a couple of returning starters, losing Mason Smith, that it was just, it is a week to week thing where I think we can talk about the game and all that, but it doesn't really do anything for me in terms of like how good is Brian Kelly? How good's the program? How good are they long term? It's like this year is just a hey, I mean, last night was Brian Kelly's first time ever playing in an SEC West venue. He's coached for 30 something years. He's never coached in an
Yeah.
SEC West school before. He's played at Georgia before, never coached in an SEC West venue. So I think right now it's all a lot of learning, a lot of getting settled in, and you kind of take what you get if you're an LSU fan. If you're 4-1 right now and your win total was set at 7, I don't care how it happened. You feel good about it because you should have come into the season with expectations that this team will probably win 7 games. And if that was your expectation, normally people respond with, well, I just want to see them fight. They've done that. I don't want to see it. Now, the team's been sloppy at times. I do think they're well coached from the top. Like, I think Kelly's a good head coach.
Yes.
And are they like, and then you would say, I want to see them improve. We saw some of that in September. It
I think
didn't
so.
feel like it at Auburn last night, but if they can continue to improve in October and into November, Matty B, then they may win 7, 8 games. But like, again, for me, it's just like a week to week thing of I kind of know what they are at this point, and if they win, it's impressive.
Yes. I mean, it's no matter how you look at it, no matter how many games this team wins, this is a rebuild season. Like it doesn't matter if they end up going 8-4, it's a rebuild season because of everything you just said. But I like the way you look at it. It's like they rented a quarterback on the fly. It's like they rented a secondary on the fly. They have freshman Mason Taylor in at tight end who somehow has the most targets in this game and gets a ton of targets, but we'll get into that later. Um, you know, you get Mason Smith hurt, your running back room is shallow as it is. I just look at this season as like if you can get to 7 wins, it is a massive win. It's a massive win for this program. You look at the rest of their schedule and you're like, okay, you have UAB left, so that could get you to 5, but everybody else, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Alabama, A&M, you go down the list, it's like these are going to be really
Tennessee
tough
next
games.
weekend,
Yeah, Tennessee next weekend. These are
Florida in the swamp.
Florida. These are all games against teams in their, 3rd, 4th, 5th year, obviously except for Florida. And then you got like Nick Saban over there, right? And so everything for me is icing at this point, and it's just about tightening things up as the year goes on. So I know LSU fans want to win 8 games every year, want to win, or not every year, sorry. They want to win 8 games as a baseline this year. But to me, it's what this team does and what we've seen from Matt House, what we've seen from Brian Kelly, what we've seen from other individual players like Harold Perkins, Mason Taylor. Go down the list of young guys on this team that are contributing, the 2 tackles. So the future is still very bright, and I think getting that out of the way as far as the big picture thing goes is good for us.
You got
Do you
any
want to talk offense?
You want to talk offense? Are we going to talk? Well, we kind of talked about heavy on defense already.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Ojolari. Without Mason Smith, he's to me the most important player on the defense, and he's had to sit a couple games because he got injured. But when he's been out there, he's a game changer. I mean, I thought that he had the biggest play of the game. It was 17-0 in the second quarter.
Yeah.
LSU has no signs of life, and out of nowhere, it's strip sack. Jay Ward scoops it, runs it in, and you look around and you're like, LSU's down by 10. Like, how did that even just happen? Like they were dead in the water. They couldn't move the football, and
Yep.
BJ Ojolari bails you out. Harold Perkins is different. He just is. I mean, he made a nice play. He picked off Coy Moore, but Coy, I don't even know if Coy was trying to throw it out of bounds for Auburn, what he was
I have
doing,
no
but
clue.
threw it. Harold's right
No
there.
idea.
I liked the next drive. They have Harold looking after Ashford, and he chases him down on third down and basically runs him out of bounds where Ashford can't throw it or get any yards past the sticks. I mean, the kid is special. And as you said, if you're trying to feel good about like certain pieces that you know are here long term, the tackles, what different spots on the defense, sure, but Perkins. I mean, that is a guy you can build around in the middle of your defense and be licking your chops if you're Matt House. So we all wondered, like, oh, when would Harold Perkins get involved as a freshman? Would he play much? Would he be a special teams guy? Like, he was a special teams guy for one game. Then it became, okay, you're out there and you're out there more, you're out there more, you're out there more. And last night, and we'll switch off defense after this, they went with Jones and Penn to start the game at linebacker. And Penn had some good plays. But boy,
Yeah.
they moved to Baskerville and Harold Perkins a lot more often than they typically had and a lot quicker than they typically had. So Weeks is still playing some backup and playing well. But God, Harold Perkins is just on a. He was the number one linebacker for a reason. And it's
Yeah.
very clear when you watch him play.
Yeah.
A lot
I
of
mean,
a lot of people gave him some Micah Parsons type love, which I'm not going to say he's the best player in the NFL right now, but I like the comp. If he can be
y-
anywhere near that,
yeah. I mean, I could see it. Obviously, in college, Michael was more of an inside guy, and then he's flexible enough to move around. I mean, I see the comparisons. I see the comparisons, especially as a freshman. I mean, with so much room to grow. Other shout outs on defense, real quick. I thought Makai Wingo was good. Jaquelin Roy, I thought was good. Greg Penn, you
Jaquelin Roy
mentioned.
had his best game.
Yeah, I don't
Led
fault
the
that.
team in tackles and led the team in solo stops.
Yeah, he was definitely a force.
And he
Up the
was giving
middle,
Coy Moore the business verbally all night long.
he was. He even got a penalty. I don't remember when. I don't remember if they showed a replay of it. I don't remember if I even saw it, but yeah, he got a penalty. So other than that, it was a great day. Baskerville was fine. Just running through some defense players. Greg Brooks, obviously the interception, huge play. Thought he was incredibly active the entire game. Fouché was active. Fouché was active. It did look at times. I'm trying to remember. I think I remember on a couple of occasions. I was like, okay, well maybe he didn't look 100% back. Maybe getting caught up to the speed at times, which will happen. But um, I mean, it was good to see him out there. We know how much of a playmaker he is. All right, jumping to the offense real quick.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
work
Where
to
do you
do.
start?
There's a lot of work to do here.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you put this more on players or the offensive coordinator?
I put it on both. I've been skeptical of Denbrock since before the season. I was really high on Matt House. I was skeptical of Denbrock, and I just wanted to see how they handled it. It looks like Matt House makes the most of his personnel at all times, and it looks like he is utilizing his talent well. I feel like I can't say the same about Denbrock. With that being said, what did we say coming into this game? We said the LSU offensive line was going to struggle against this Auburn defensive front. Like, this Auburn defensive line was ranked third in the SEC coming into the year. They looked like the third best SEC defensive line. I mean, last night, and they gave everybody trouble. Everybody on the offensive line had their own turn of struggling, and so um, Jaden Daniels ended up running. Perhaps I thought he could have ran for more yards. He did get caught. I mean, I thought Auburn's defensive line not only did a good job rushing the passer, but they also did a great job containing Jaden Daniels whenever he did try to run, for the most part. So the Auburn defensive line kind of limited what LSU could do, but at the same time, you cannot have a game where basically I went and looked, and maybe I missed one, but only 2 plays of over 20 yards. And one was the John Emery run for a touchdown, and the other was the throw to
The
John
John
Emery.
Emery
Yeah.
pass. Yeah.
Yeah. Those were the only 2 the entire game. And there weren't many other plays over 15 yards. I think there was like 2. So there's 0 explosiveness in this offense. If you want to blame Jane Daniels for that, if you want to blame the receivers for, I don't know, not catching the ball and not being on the same page, you can, sure. But at the end of the day, we watch enough college football, right? You can scheme a lot in college football. You can watch a Wake Forest. You can watch I think Florida State is good. Alabama, Tennessee. Go down the list of good offenses. You can scheme up some big plays, and it feels like they just are unable to figure out how to create big plays because it's not just Auburn's defensive line. They didn't have explosive plays against Mississippi State, against Florida State, heck, against New Mexico. Like, it's just not an explosive offense, and it is concerning.
I feel like one of the more explosive plays they had was Chris Hilton deep, and it got underthrown to the point where Chris Hilton had to stop almost and catch it like falling down, like hit him in stride. He would have been gone. That might have been New Mexico.
Yeah,
I'm with you. No, and you look at the numbers. Besh, 1 target for 2 yards. Butte, 2 targets, 4 yards. Neighbors, 6 targets, 26 yards. The running backs, essentially, Emery certainly got more in the passing game than anybody else did, receiver wise,
I mean,
basically all off one play.
yeah,
And then here's the inexplicable thing, which I think will sum up for me, at least in part, of where I think Denbrock is stuck kind of with what he wants to do in this offense. I love Mason Taylor. Great kid. He should not ever lead you in targets. He is a true freshman tight end. Mason Smith didn't get targeted 7 times a game in high school. He's not Brock Bowers. He's not, and I'm not picking on him at all. LSU's got a receiver room with all the guys I just mentioned. Like Jeray Jenkins didn't get a target last night. Like that's inexcusable. But then more often than not, Taylor's the dump off play, the safety valve, I made a read and now I'm checking down real quick and throwing it to him. 7 targets, 3 catches for 14 yards. He was targeted 7 times and he had a long of 6. That's not doing anything. That's a safety valve of all safety valves that literally is not. He's running to the sideline on every play or catching it falling down. Essentially, if you're looking at the stat sheet, that's the only options for what he could be doing.
I mean,
I think that Denbrock wants to run his offense, right? And that involves heavy tight end usage and 21 personnel or, different looks that I don't think this team has the personnel for. Like, so then when you try to marry those together and then dumb it down a little bit more because you feel like, man, we don't have all the pieces and our quarterback isn't, as accurate maybe as we could love him to be or, pushes it downfield like we'd love him to be or whatever it might be. The end result is just a bad looking offense. Like,
yes,
I just don't get it. They just don't look good. They have some talent, they have deficiencies, but I don't see the play calling helping them out a ton. Like,
I agree.
and I'm not sure it's like the play calling as much as it is just the system, like the scheme, like all of that. Like, it's not like I think they have all the right calls here, and Denbrock makes the mistake of calling all the wrong calls from the other side of the page. Like, I just don't think it's a very efficient offense for what they have right now.
Yeah, by the end of the game, heck, by the second quarter, I was yelling, "Just run the ball, just run the ball."
Absolutely, and
I'd
they
completely
did. I mean,
given
that
up.
was it.
Yeah, I'd completely given up on the pass game by the second quarter. And you look at the running backs, they end the game 4 yards to carry, 5.3 yards to carry, and 4.2 yards to carry. The running backs the offense line was at least getting a push on in the running game. Josh Williams, I thought was really good actually.
He was great.
John Emery, ends the game, 8 carries for 42 yards. Noah Cain, 5 carries, 21 yards. I mean, all these are positive yard plays in the run game, and I thought they didn't run the ball enough. I thought there were times where they would get a first down through the run game and then turn to pass, and it was awful. And so I'm like, if you at least figure out where your strength is here against this Auburn defense line, because the Auburn corners were sitting on everything the LSU receivers were doing. I thought the LSU receivers were I mean, heck, how many times did we see Malik Neighbors get, held, grabbed while he was going on a slant route? It's because
He
these
wanted that
Auburn,
flag all night. He didn't get
yeah,
it till late, but he
he
was
got, yeah, he
asking
got the
for it
one
for
late,
all night.
but I think it was representative of how much the Auburn corners were just sitting on everything what LSU was doing. They were pressing against them. They were being physical, and for LSU not to have a counter to take the top off the defense at any point was disheartening. Like it was disappointing. It was disappointing that there wasn't a single shot really downfield. I think there was maybe one. I don't even remember when it was, but it flashed through my head just now. I think about the Mason Taylor point. The thing that bothers me is that they have a tight end on the field for blocking purposes, right? That's what Kelly always says is they want to have a tight end on the field because of the run game. That's cool, but then why is that same tight end that's in here for blocking purposes also leading you in targets? I've said multiple times throughout this season, I think Jack Besh could play that Mason Taylor role tenfold. I think he could do what Mason Taylor does better. I think he's just as good or just as bad as a run blocker and can obviously take these catches from even more yards and has a bigger catch radius, has better hands, all this stuff than Mason Taylor. That for me is how much they throw the ball to Mason Taylor. Every time they throw it to Mason Taylor, it's basically a negative play for me. I think it was Mississippi State where he had 6 targets and 1 catch.
Yep.
Um, I mean,
He
I just
led he led them in targets in both SEC games, and I think he combined for like 4 catches
like, you might as well have
and
Jack
20
Mashburn out
yards.
there. You might as well have Jack Mashburn out there if you really want a blocking guy, or Cole Taylor out there if you want a guy who can. I think both of them are probably better blockers than Mason at this point, and so it's not like you're getting anything from him receiving. I just that is emblematic to me of this offense. Mason Taylor leading you in targets when this entire season it's been, why is Mason Taylor or why is the tight end on the field so much? It's because they want to block in the run game. That it just 2 and 2 just does not add up right now, and that's the biggest thing for me. So you need to we could beat a dead horse this entire season and be like, they need to get Malik Neighbors the ball. They need to get Kayshawn the ball. They need to get Brian the ball. They need to get all these talented receivers here to get them the ball. And I just don't think Mike Denbrock knows how to scheme it up, to be more aggressive, to be more vertical. You can blame it on Jaden Daniels. I blamed it on the offensive line last night, but at the end of the day, there is something you can do. If you go find an offensive coordinator out there, you can scheme up some explosive plays.
100%. I'd like to see that happen in October. Like Denbrock's been around a long time. His Cincinnati teams would have some explosive plays to them. Like there's got to be something where you turn a corner here and you say like, like got it. That worked, and now we're kind of moving and grooving a little bit. Okay, let's play a quick lightning round. We're almost at 30 minutes already. I want to ask you a couple questions.
Go ahead.
Jaden Daniels got banged up. It was like a needed knee contact. It was just bruised. He was clearly limping, so they
Yeah.
put in Nussmeier, and they were running the ball at the end anyway, so it really didn't matter. Um, are you pressing any panic button on Jaden Daniels, or is Jaden Daniels the same quarterback that you knew he was a week ago?
He's the same quarterback for me. I think he has to be able to run the ball, which is why I actually like the move to Nussmeier when Daniels got hurt. Because if Daniels can't run, and also not for nothing, he like literally he didn't look like he could do a drop back. So I was fine with them taking him out. Um, for me, I mean, there were a couple inaccurate throws, but I think he gives you the best chance to win it. And not for nothing, I think there is still a certain confidence from the team. I think there's still a certain calmness about him that this team likes. And I just can't put the offensive struggles on him as much when at the end of the day he rushes for 59 yards, and a couple of those runs were huge, huge plays to get first downs. Like he can put the team on his back when he needs to. I think he's fine. He is what he is.
Are you pressing the panic button on a receiver group that they dropped a lot of passes last night?
Honestly, a little bit. A little bit. And I don't think it's because they're not talented, right? Obviously, they can catch the ball. Like that's not the concern is that, oh, they had drops, so that means they're not good. The thing for me is I feel and this isn't based on anything. This is based on absolutely nothing except for my speculation. It feels like they are starting to get like, dang man, can we get something going through the air? Because isn't that just human nature when you end the game with 85 freaking passing yards and like how many of those are to
5 in
running?
the second half.
Yeah,
5 in
and
the
how
second
many of
half.
those are to running backs and tight ends? Like this is a
40
receiver.
something.
Yeah, and this is a receiver room that was heralded as obviously one of the best in the SEC coming into the year, and you end the game with
And
Butte
they
for
are.
your best 2 yards, like 32 yards in this receiving room. So yeah, I
So, would the natural inclination for a fan listening would say, well, then bench the quarterback.
I don't I think Daniel's legs are still too valuable. I don't think they scheme up. I don't trust Mike Denbrock. Even if Garrett Nussmeier is the quarterback we think he can be, right? If he reaches let's just say a realistic ceiling of this year, right? Let's say he is actually that good. I don't trust Denbrock, and I at this moment don't trust the offensive line even against a good defensive line to make the plays necessary to be explosive. I don't trust them still. So I can't
I know
put that on Daniels.
that's what people are going to talk about today is you threw the ball for 5 yards in the second half. You threw it for 80 total. Jaden's not the guy. That's going to be the narrative. I
I
like I like that we can talk it out here. I think a lot of this is on just execution, but Jaden is who he is. You already know that. Like I think at this point, you're right. A lot of it becomes more how are you attacking a defense than what is Jaden doing.
as much as I would love to find one person and blame that one person because it makes life a lot easier on everybody. I know everybody likes finding that one person, be like it's his fault. To me, the offensive line was not good last night. I thought really struggled with a really
They were
good
good in run blocking.
yes, run block. Sorry, I'm talking about the pass game. Yeah, the Auburn defense line we knew was going to give them problems. They did. Um, I thought the Auburn corners were really aggressive against LSU's receivers, and then the receivers did drop a couple as well. You could even argue that Malik Neighbors one that was like behind him. You know,
He should have caught that one.
yeah, a lot of people said he should have caught that one. I'm usually sympathetic to receivers because that's a hard job, but like, yeah, you could have caught that one. That's another 15 yards there. So, and then you can blame Denbrock, you can blame Daniels, you can blame the receivers on a couple occasions, you can blame the offensive line. I'm cool with distributing blame after this performance.
The offense, same thing I said to lead off the podcast. It is what it is right now, and I'm not sure unless schematically you're changing things that the results are going to get a lot different.
I mean, we said after the Florida State and I think the Mississippi State game, it's like this team is just gonna have to gut out wins. They're gonna have
Well,
to
it's
just
true
claw
every
this thing.
week.
And it's so true, man. They're gonna have to just muscle out, gut out, win all the every cliche talk. They're gonna have to somehow steal wins.
I will tell you, I think John Emery's back. It to the extent of, and here's what I mean by that: nobody's getting 20 something carries in the backfield. Not happening. They're on a rotation. Like Josh, and this is a game they were grinding it out the whole second half because they couldn't complete a pass.
Yes.
17 carries for Williams, 16 for Daniels, 8 for Emery, 5 for Kane. So obviously Josh Williams got the heavy workload. Goodwin was out, who obviously would have normally been starting, and the rotation's even
Yeah.
deeper. Emery didn't even get a touch, I don't think, until that dump off pass to him in the second quarter that he took all the way to the goal line. Then he goes, was it the hurdle play too? Did he hurdle someone? It just looked like, okay, that's like how a 5-star
Yeah.
operates. And then
His
when he
touchdown
took
run
that,
was
when he shook off the initial defender in the backfield, then boom, hit the hole, scores, high steps into the end zone. To that point, he had only had like a couple of touches, and he was 80 yards of LSU's offense, or 60 something yards of LSU's offense on 2 touches. So I think he's back in terms of the 15 games of rust are starting that you had to miss are starting to be shook. You shake it off. You've now found a role in this where they're going to work you into each game. You're not going to start, but you're going to get a feel for it, and then you'll get in there. I think his workload increases, but it just kind of reminds me a little bit of the Harold Perkins, where you just see like, okay, I see why he was a 5 star. Like
Yeah.
he's got some burst and wiggle to him that the other guys in the room naturally God gifted talent don't have. And whatever he can do for you over the months of October and November are going to be huge, especially if you're still struggling throwing the football.
Yep. 100%.
But shout out Josh Williams, who I thought had a great game.
I agree. All right. Anything else we missed here? Jack Best is now returning kickoffs too.
4 penalties in the first half on special teams. Like what? Well, that's the other thing. LSU had double-digit penalties on the road in the SEC. Like you'll never win with that recipe. Like they're lucky that Auburn had 9 penalties or whatever for the same amount of yards. Or Auburn, here's the 2 things you can't do. Turn the ball over on the road. LSU won the turnover battle 4-1. It was the reason they won the game. Penalties, double-digit penalties, and they still somehow won. So there are things this team, apart from scheme, apart from Jaden Daniels, apart from Mike Denbrock, apart from the receivers dropping it or getting on the same page, like, there's a lot they can clean up that will just make it look more crisp. And whether that's erasing 10 penalties would be a big thing.
I'm just looking at the stats. It's what a game. I mean,
I picked 24-16 and it was 21. So I mean, we hit on the under. We knew
we did.
it would be. We knew
There's a
this would be a
reason.
game that wasn't some like wild blowout. These offenses ain't all that. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be real.
Yeah. I mean, let's just say when I was going into halftime and it was 17-14, I actually still felt pretty good about the under 46. I was like, there's a good
Double
chance.
down.
There's a good chance that these teams just stop scoring, and sure enough, they pretty much did. So, yeah, shout out the final lines readers. We got those right. We're on a roll right now with LSU.
Daniels at over 42 and a half, putting
Mm-hmm.
rushing yards, putting the house, the mortgage on it.
Look at us. Look at us.
Okay, let's close this out, but let's give one final take. And here's my take, because everybody, I think, half the time wants to just finger point and all of that. I'm just going to repeat what I said at the start. This is a week-to-week team. You're going to have to fight every week, and it should make the wins feel even better. Like you just beat Auburn on the road with all those things gone wrong. You were down 17-0. You came back. Enjoy that. Don't pick apart that. Well, I just don't know if Jaden Daniels is the answer. Well, he's not going to be your quarterback forever. Is what it is. Like, I just don't know if they have the O-line to get it done. Well, they're playing 2 true freshmen at offensive tackle, and they're recruiting well at the position. Like, I don't know if our starting linebackers are great enough. Okay, you got Harold Perkins coming up. He seems to be pretty good. Like, just if you get wins this year, enjoy them. Don't worry about nitpicking what it all means for the future, because by and large, Matty B, not a whole lot this year beyond the foundation they're building means much to me about what the future is under Brian Kelly.
Yep. 100%. You hit on it. You take these wins. You talk trash. If you have any Auburn fans, you can, think of it that way. You get to
Ain't nobody got Auburn friends.
rub it in their face if you do. But yeah, it's gonna be a game like you said. Piece together the offensive line. This was the 4th starting offensive line in 5 games. You hope by next year and the year after that you start to get some continuity there. Obviously, injuries played a little bit of a part in it. We hope Dellinger will be back for the Tennessee game. But run a quarterback, you run a secondary. Charles Turner's at center. Obviously that's not the long-term plan there. It's like you have to figure this out. I was very critical, and I am going to be very critical of this team, or at least of the offense, until they start to show a little bit of life in the passing game. But at this moment, you take the win. I still think this defense is elite. I just think they had a really, really rough start to the game. Like, obviously, allowing 17 points to Auburn is not something I anticipated in the first half, that is. So you
And
take it and you go from there. We'll see how they do against Tennessee. I'm excited.
yeah, and 11 a.m. Woo.
Woo!
Let's close out with this though. Seven Banks did fly back with them. Um, Obviously, nothing you ever want to see, but I mean,
No.
for the first play of the game, the whole place is silent for 20 minutes. He gets carted out. He was brought over to Opelika to the hospital. Brian Kelly said that all the tests came back clean, and then confirmed that he would be traveling back with him. And at that point, we knew he had movement in his extremities. And then we saw some pictures and photos after the game, kind of that the kids were going around of him, joining back with up on the bus with him and flying home with him. He was in a neck brace, but he was walking perfectly fine and all that. So very scary moment, but good to know that it doesn't seem to be anything, um, you know, all that serious. Could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, great job definitely by everybody making sure taking the precautions necessary, because obviously while he's there for a long time, you never know the severity of it, but you have to be very cautious. So you get him on the stretcher, you get him out of there, and you kind of go from there. So yes, great to see that he was okay. He was good to go. Did anybody else get hurt from LSU in this game? I don't
Well,
think.
Daniels
Oh
has now
yes,
gotten hurt in back-to-back games. We'll see
yeah.
what they say about. I mean, he was limping at the end of the game, but he looked fine in kind of locker room stuff I saw after. So I'm sure he'll just need to get some ice on it, rest it, be limited a bit in practice, and then see where you go against
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Yeah, I definitely didn't. It didn't look like anything serious. It didn't look like a tear or anything like that. It looked like, dang, he either banged knees or something went awry there, and so he just had to try to shake it off at the end of the day. But that's when I was concerned. When Jay Daniels was limping and grimacing, I was very concerned that LSU was not going to be able to get the first downs to close this game out. And they really
Josh
didn't.
Williams.
Auburn just didn't.
Josh Williams.
Josh Williams came alive. The Coy Moore game, boys, from the start to the
It's in the
finish.
books.
It's in the books. Coy Moore throwing picks. Greg Brooks stealing the ball from Coy Moore. The LSU Twitter tweeting Harold Perkins intercepts LSU or Auburn wide receiver Coy Moore. This game had everything. Everything. What a game. All right. That's all we have. We hope y'all enjoyed this reaction podcast. Leave us a like, follow, subscribe on our YouTube, leave us a comment, all that good stuff. Send it to a friend, drop a like. And yeah, the YouTube is continuing to do great. We appreciate all of y'all's support. You can follow us on Twitter at the Bengal Tiger on 3. And yeah, become a subscriber. Sorry, let me get my hat. I always have the hat right here ready to go.
Boom.
$1 for the first month. So become a subscriber and you get a hat. So yeah, there you go. We appreciate y'all for joining us, and we will talk to y'all later.